Did start. There you are. How's it going, guys? So we got the Uglies Electrical Reference Book. It's got the Ohm's Law on the front, so you can figure out different things when it comes to electricity. Yes, this is a 2014 edition because I usually use my apprentice's electric Uglies code book because they have the newest up-to-date going through the apprenticeship. And I don't know, when you've been a journeyman as long as I have, you kind of remember a lot of this stuff because you're just doing it over and over for almost 35 years now. So there are code changes and things, but most of this stuff stays the same as far as basic electricity wire sizes and conduit sizes and amperages and wattages. It all comes back to Ohm's Law. So I usually use their book because we can make little notes in their books, and just gets them a little bit more familiar with their book because they do add pages and things too over the years. And so there's voltage drop calculations. See, they even show you examples, and this thing really will run you through a lot of information. And there's transformers, just lost that one. Allowable ampacity through raceways. And there's different raceways, depending on what you run through, like PVC or metal clad conduit. There's rigid. Let's see here, what's that? There's actual dimensions of insulated conductors. So this will actually give you the diameter of each wire, depending on the wire it is. You have to look it up, and you can add these little numbers up to come up to what we can fit inside of a conduit, for an example. So it'll lay out all the diameters of each wire. Look at this. There's thread dimensions for taps and things for drills. I mean, these things are just loaded with information. If you're looking for a little book to cheat with, this is what we use. And these things are, I don't know, last time I bought one, probably back in 2014 here, I think it was $10 at Home Depot. You could probably get them on Amazon or wherever. This is box fill. If you're making up a splice in a junction box, this is the dimensions of the boxes, so you got the right box and the wire size. I'm trying to get this thing to focus here, guys, but it's not cooperating with me. Here we go. Different size wires and how many wires that you can fit in the actual box. That's a little tricky, and I'll tell you how this works since we're here. If you're making up a J box, you count all your hots, you count all your neutrals. If you have a device like a switch or a plug in the box, the switch or the plug takes up room in the box too, right? So that counts as 2 wires. But you get a bonus that bails you out a lot of times. And the bonus is your ground wires all count as 1. So that's your chart for that. And you got me on video, so if you can't remember that, you can always rewind and look me up. So, there's just load factors. Here's electrical symbols for reading blueprints, and it just goes on and on and on, guys. There's just so much useful information in this little book. It's incredible. So there's pints and quart conversions, and and this thing's like, I don't know maybe 5 inches by 3-4 inches or something here. I mean, it's a very small book and just loaded with information. Decimal equivalents. So just goes on and on and on with all kinds of information. So just kind of flipping through it. Maybe you guys kind of see things. There's bending conduits. If you ever wanted to learn how to bend conduits, once again, I know all this stuff. Been doing it many, many moons. Moby Dick was a minnow, I believe. I came over on the Mayflower. So, here we are with all kinds of different knots. Yeah, that's, I was just getting ready to say, I think that's back here somewhere. Hand signals. If you need to talk to somebody on a tractor or a loader or a crane. So, just a little cheat sheet. It's just loaded, full of stuff. But the reason we broke this out here tonight, I want to get into, look at that, we flipped right to it too. Amperages. See if I can steady my hand here. We're going to have to do something here, guys. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, here's your types of wires. Oh, that's way better. THHN, there's our guy. Most of your wire you're going to buy today is THHN. If you look at that little small writing on the side nobody looks at, a lot of times it's going to say THHN. If you're wiring up something and you go down to your local hardware store and buy some wire, direct burial wire, which is similar to Romex, if you know what that is. That's called UF. So you would use this chart for UF, some type of THHN product. There's THHWs, that's kind of rated for water. So these are the different insulations that are on the outside of your wire, which determines how much amperage you can send through the wire. Because amperage creates heat, heat creates fires. So, this is why so many YouTube channels that go over electrical things, like, anything. But van builds, a lot of times I catch people. And I correct things in the comments all the time, I'm just trying to help people out. So you'd use your THHN, which is your 90-degree chart. These asterisks on the sides here, we're going to want to go by this first chart no matter what. This is pretty much electrical standard. So if it's a 14 gauge wire, you don't want to hook it to a 20 amp breaker or a 20 amp fuse or what have you. If it's 14 gauge, you don't want to send more than 15 amps through it. And there's an 80% rule too, because we really don't want to send that much through it. But as far as the breaker or fuse, what it's being fused at, that's what we're going to go with. So it's kind of the, standard. So 10 gauge, 30 amps, which is what I will be doing in the van. But we'll be fusing it down and running to our receptacles and switches and things like that will be in a 12 gauge. But our main is just going to be your typical 30. If you've ever plugged in an RV, they'll have a 240 volt or 220. People call it different things. Same. But they're going to be on a 220, 240 type system where you actually have two hot legs. So that's why it's 200 volts. And they're going to be rated at 50 amps. So you're going to run a number 6 because it's rated for 55 amps. So you know you're good. So that's if you're doing a big RV. In a van, I'm just going to go over, 110, 120 volts type system. If, like I say, if you've ever plugged in an RV or anything like that at RV parks and stuff, they'll usually have a 30 amp setup. and they'll have a 50 amp setup. But the 30 amp, you're only getting 110 volts, and the 50 amp, you're getting 220 volts. So I don't really need all that much power. So we're just going to do the 30 amp. So that's what will come into the van and enter the van, my main feed. Extension cord or what have you, if it's going out to a main plug to plug in, say, land power, grid power. That will be what will be feeding the van. I will take that feed into an electrical panel, and we will go out with breakers to each light and plug things like that. Those are branch circuits that will come out of the panel with, just like at your house. And that will be on a 12 gauge wire. So these numbers here, we do use these once we get beyond our asterisks here. The say number 8, that would be rated for 55. When you're getting up into those kinds of numbers, usually you're running it into a conduit or something like that. So this is your D rating that you would use. And D rating means if we're running more than one wire in a conduit, it creates heat. So once again, creating heat, that causes fires. So we'll just go over one of these because we're not going to use this in the van, but somebody might need some information like this. So right here, we have adjustment factors. We had 4 to 6 conductors inside of a raceway. We got 80%. What do we got there? 7 to 9 is 70%. So I always flip this just so I can do it in my head quicker. So instead of 80, I just think in my head 20, right? Instead of 70, I think the opposite. I think 30. I'll show you why, because I just do it in my head real quick. Let's go back to where we were so it looks a little bit familiar. We don't want to use one of the other charts. Okay, so we would use our 90-degree chart. We're using THHN, and let's say we got the 20% rule. We're running a number 8. It's rated for 55 amps. But 20% rule, what's 10% of 55? It'd be 5.5, right? If we double that, it'll be 20%, so we got 11 amps. So 11 amps needs to come off of that 55. So that brings us down to 44. So 44 amps, that number 8 would only be good for. So what happens if we're trying to run, more through that wire? Then we'd have to just up a wire size. We just go to number 6. Now we're good for 75 amps. So if we do that factor again, 7.5 is 10%, right? 15. Excuse me, 15 from 75 leaves us 60. So 60 amps, that would be that number 6. I need a water, and I'm out here in the shop. That would, cover 60 amps. So just wanted to kind of go over some basics tonight. I know this stuff is kind of boring, but this is how we do things right. And it just drives me bonkers seeing people do things wrong. And they're risking their life, they're risking their home in a lot of ways because people are living in vans. And, I have a home and multiple cars, and, I may go on the road for few months in my van, but a lot of people are living in these things and they really don't even have a choice. A lot of people, they've lost their homes the times that we're going through these days. So I just want to put this information out there to keep people safe. So we'll get more into hands-on stuff real soon. Talk to you guys soon. Late.